The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and violet, casting a warm glow over the white sand beach. Ethan stood at the altar, his heart a drumbeat against his ribs, watching Serafina walk towards him. She was ethereal in her lace gown, her smile a beacon that promised all the happiness in the world. Their wedding was a dream, a small, intimate affair with close friends and family. The sound of the waves a gentle accompaniment to their vows. They were in a secluded resort on a remote island, a perfect escape from the world, a canvas for their new life together. "I promise to love you, cherish you, and stand by you always," Ethan had whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Serafina's eyes, deep pools of sapphire, had met his, reflecting a love that seemed as boundless as the ocean before them. It was a love story for the ages. Or so he believed. The first few days of their honeymoon were a blur of sun-drenched mornings, lazy afternoons by the infinity pool, and intimate dinners under a canopy of stars. They explored hidden coves, laughed until their sides ached, and spoke of their future, painting vivid pictures of a life filled with joy and adventure. Serafina was everything he had ever wanted, a vibrant spirit with a laugh that could chase away any shadow. On their fourth night, a full moon hung like a pearl in the velvet sky. The air was warm, carrying the scent of salt and tropical flowers. Serafina, ever the free spirit, suggested a late night swim. "Come on, Ethan," she had coaxed, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "The water will be like silk under the moonlight." Ethan, a creature of habit and caution, hesitated. "It is a bit late, my love, and the currents can be tricky here." She pouted playfully, her lower lip jutting out, "Just for a little while. A quick dip. It will be romantic. I promise." He could never resist her. "All right, but we stay close to the shore, all right?" They walked hand in hand to the water's edge, the waves gently lapping at their feet. The ocean, usually a vibrant blue, was now a shimmering expanse of silver under the moonlight. They waded in, the cool water a welcome embrace after the day's heat. Serafina, with a graceful dive, slipped beneath the surface, emerging moments later with a gasp of delight. "It is incredible," she called out, her voice carrying on the gentle breeze. She swam a little further out, her silhouette a dark shape against the moonlit water. Ethan, less confident in the open ocean at night, stayed closer to the shallows, watching her. "Do not go too far," he warned, a faint unease stirring within him. She waved a hand, a carefree gesture. "Just a little more, I will be right back." He saw her dive again, a flash of white as she disappeared. He waited, his gaze fixed on the spot where she had vanished. Seconds stretched into a minute, then two. A cold knot began to form in his stomach. "Serafina," he called out, his voice a little louder now. The only response was the rhythmic whisper of the waves. He waited longer, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm. The unease morphed into a cold dread. He waded deeper, then began to swim, calling her name, his voice growing desperate. The vastness of the ocean seemed to swallow his cries. He swam further, his eyes scanning the moonlit surface, but there was no sign of her. The water, once inviting, now felt menacing cold. Panic, sharp and suffocating, seized him. He swam back to shore, stumbling onto the sand, his breath ragged. He ran back to their villa, shouting her name, his voice hoarse. The resort staff, roused by his frantic cries, quickly organized a search party. Flashlights cut through the darkness, their beams dancing across the waves, but the ocean offered no answers. The next morning, the sun rose on a nightmare. The local police were called, a grim-faced inspector named Davies arriving with a small team. The search expanded, boats combing the coastline, divers exploring the reefs. Days turned into a week, then two. The initial hope, fragile as it was, began to dissipate, replaced by a crushing certainty. Serafina was gone. The official conclusion, delivered with a heavy sigh by Inspector Davies, was accidental drowning. Ethan was a ghost, wandering the resort. The vibrant colors of the island now muted, lifeless. Every wave seemed to mock him, every breath a struggle. He had lost his wife, his future, everything. He returned home, a hollow shell of the man who had left, The wedding photos on his phone a cruel reminder of a happiness that had been stolen by the sea. He clung to the belief that she had drowned, a tragic accident, the only explanation that allowed him to grieve without bitterness. Weeks bled into a month. Ethan lived in a haze of grief, the silence of his home a constant echo of Serafina's absence. He avoided friends, ignored calls, finding solace only in the quiet despair that had become his constant companion. He spent his days staring at the ocean from his living room window, a morbid ritual, imagining her lost beneath its vast, indifferent surface. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, a package arrived. It was a plain, unmarked brown envelope, sent via express courier. His name and address were printed neatly, no return address. He opened it with a detached curiosity, expecting perhaps a condolence card or a forgotten item from the resort. Inside, nestled amongst layers of bubble wrap, was a small, unlabeled USB drive. A wave of confusion washed over him. Who would send him this? He plugged it into his laptop, his fingers trembling slightly. A single video file appeared. The file name was simply The Grand Escape. He clicked play. The screen flickered to life, revealing a dimly lit room. And then he saw her, Serafina. She was laughing, a sound that ripped through his heart. Not the joyous laugh he knew, but a conspiratorial, almost gleeful chuckle. She was not alone. A man, his back mostly to the camera, was beside her, his arm draped casually around her shoulders. "Did you see his face, Marcus?" Serafina giggled, her voice clear, vibrant, alive. He bought every single word, every tear. Ethan's breath hitched. Marcus. The name was a distant echo from Serafina's past, an ex-boyfriend she had mentioned briefly, dismissively, as a youthful mistake. The man, Marcus, turned slightly, revealing a smirk. "He is a good one, Sarah. The insurance payout will set us up for life, Sarah, not Serafina." A cold dread seeped into Ethan's bones. He watched, horrified, as the video continued. It was a sex tape, intimate and explicit, but it was the dialogue that truly shattered him. They were discussing the perfect scam, detailing how they had planned her disappearance, how they had faked her drowning, how they would collect the life insurance money. Serafina, his beautiful, loving wife, was narrating the entire deception. Her eyes alight with a calculating glee he had never seen. "The night swim was genius," she purred, leaning into Marcus. He was so worried. It made it even more believable. Ethan felt a physical blow, as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. The grief that had consumed him for weeks curdled into a searing, incandescent rage. Betrayal. It was a betrayal so profound, so absolute. It eclipsed every other emotion. The woman he had mourned, the love of his life, was a phantom, a meticulously crafted lie. He watched the video again, his hands shaking, his mind reeling. Every tender moment, every whispered promise, every shared dream, now twisted into a grotesque mockery. The tears he had shed, the sleepless nights, the agonizing pain, all for a performance. "This cannot be real," he whispered, his voice raw. But the images on the screen, the sound of her voice, left no room for doubt. She was alive, she had faked her death, and she had done it with her ex-lover. A new purpose, cold and sharp as a shard of ice, began to form within him. The grief was gone, replaced by a burning need for answers, for justice. He would find them. He would make them pay. He would unravel this monstrous lie. If you are finding this story as gripping as we are, consider sharing it with a friend who loves a good mystery. It helps us bring you more content like this. Ethan's first step was to contact Inspector Davies. The inspector, a man of quiet patience and sharp intuition, listened to Ethan's frantic, disjointed explanation with a skeptical frown. "Mr. Thorne, I understand your grief is immense," Davies said, his voice gentle but firm. "But this sounds like a cruel hoax. Perhaps someone is playing a sick joke." "It is not a joke, Inspector," Ethan insisted, his voice trembling with suppressed fury. He pushed the laptop across the desk, the video still paused on Serafina's laughing face. "Watch this, all of it." Davies watched, his expression slowly shifting from polite skepticism to grim disbelief, then to a quiet fury of his own. When the video ended, he sat in silence for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the screen. "This is unprecedented," he finally said, his voice low. "A sophisticated fraud, and a callous one." The police investigation was reopened, but now it was a case of fraud and conspiracy. Ethan, however, knew he could not wait for the wheels of justice to turn. His pursuit was personal. He started with Marcus. Serafina had rarely spoken of him, but Ethan remembered a vague reference to a college sweetheart, someone she had dated before moving to the city. He dug through old social media profiles, finding a dormant Facebook page belonging to a Marcus Holloway. The profile picture was old, but the face was unmistakably the man in the video. Marcus's public profile offered little, but Ethan was relentless. He found old university yearbooks online and alumni directories. He discovered Marcus had studied finance, a detail that now seemed chillingly relevant. He traced Marcus's last known address to a small apartment in a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. Ethan drove there, his heart a hammer against his ribs. The apartment was empty, a "for rent" sign in the window. The landlord, a wary woman with tired eyes, confirmed Marcus Holloway had moved out abruptly a few weeks ago, leaving no forwarding address. "He seemed in a hurry," she commented, "and he left some things behind. Said he was going on a long trip." Ethan's frustration mounted. He felt like he was chasing ghosts, but he refused to give up. He remembered Serafina mentioning a small, quirky art gallery where she had worked briefly after college. It was a long shot, but he went there, hoping for any scrap of information. The gallery owner, a bohemian woman named Celeste with kind eyes, remembered Serafina, or Sarah, as she knew her. Sarah was a bright spark, Celeste recalled, a wistful smile on her face. Talented too, but she always seemed to be chasing something just out of reach. Ethan showed her the video still of Marcus. Celeste's smile faltered. "Oh, Marcus." Yes, they were quite inseparable back then. A tumultuous relationship, if I recall. He was always pushing her, always had some grand scheme. Celeste did not have Marcus's current contact information, but she remembered a close friend of Sarah's from that time, a woman named Chloe. She gave Ethan Chloe's old social media handle. Chloe was harder to track down, her online presence minimal. But Ethan, fueled by a cold, burning determination, eventually found her through a mutual friend on a professional networking site. He messaged her, explaining, vaguely, that he was Serafina's husband and needed to talk about something urgent. Chloe agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe. She was a no-nonsense woman, her eyes sharp and intelligent. When Ethan showed her the video, her face drained of color. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice laced with a mix of shock and sadness. "I knew she was capable of things, but this..." Chloe revealed a darker side of Serafina, a side Ethan had never seen. Sarah, as Chloe called her, had always been ambitious, driven by a desire for wealth and status. She had a history of manipulative behavior, of using people to get what she wanted. Marcus, Chloe explained, was her partner in crime, literally. They had pulled off smaller scams in the past, defrauding art collectors, conning wealthy tourists. They were a dangerous pair, Chloe admitted, her gaze distant. Always planning, always looking for the next big score. But Sarah, she always wanted more. She was never satisfied. Chloe had lost touch with them years ago, disgusted by their schemes. But she offered a crucial piece of information. Marcus had a distant cousin, a tech whiz, who had helped them with some of their more elaborate digital deceptions. His name was Leo. Chloe did not have his contact, but she knew he frequented a specific underground gaming forum. Ethan delved into the dark corners of the internet, eventually finding Leo's username on the forum. He sent a message, posing as an old acquaintance of Marcus, hinting at a lucrative opportunity. Leo, cautious but intrigued, eventually responded. Through careful, calculated manipulation, Ethan extracted information from Leo. It was slow, painstaking work, but he eventually learned that Marcus and Serafina had been planning a big move, a retirement fund, as Marcus called it. They had been talking about a remote hideout, a place where they could disappear after the score. Leo, unknowingly, gave Ethan the name of a small, isolated cabin rental company known for its off-grid properties. Ethan felt a surge of grim satisfaction. He was getting closer. The hunt was on. What would you do in his shoes? Share your thoughts below. Armed with the name of the rental company, Ethan began cross-referencing their properties with any recent bookings made under suspicious names or with large cash payments. It was a tedious process, but he was driven by a single, unwavering focus. He found a cabin nestled deep in a remote forest, booked for an extended period, paid for in cash. Under a name that sounded suspiciously generic, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He contacted Inspector Davies, sharing his findings. Davies, now fully invested in the case, mobilized a team. But Ethan, consumed by a need for immediate answers, could not wait. He decided to go ahead to scout the location, to confirm his suspicions. He rented an anonymous car and drove for hours, leaving the city behind, the landscape slowly transforming into dense woodland. The road became a dirt track, winding deeper into the wilderness. The air grew cooler, heavier with the scent of pine and damp earth. He felt a strange mixture of dread and exhilaration. He was finally closing in on the truth, on the people who had shattered his world. He parked his car a mile from the cabin, hidden amongst the trees. The silence of the forest was profound, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. He approached on foot, moving cautiously, his heart hammering against his ribs. The cabin appeared through the trees, a rustic structure nestled in a clearing, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. A light glowed in one of the windows. They were here. He crept closer, his movements slow and deliberate. He could hear faint voices from inside, muffled by the thick walls. He reached the edge of the clearing, peering through the dense foliage. He saw a figure move past the window, a woman, Serafina. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over him, relief that she was alive, followed by a surge of bitter rage. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. He would confront them. He would demand answers. He moved towards the front door, his hand reaching for the knob. But then a sound from inside stopped him cold. A sharp, distinct crack. It was followed by a thud. And then another crack, and another thud. The light in the window flickered, then went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness, save for the faint glow of the moon filtering through the trees. A chilling silence descended, far more unsettling than the earlier sounds. Ethan froze, his hand still hovering near the door. His mind raced, trying to process what he had heard. The sounds were unmistakable. Gunshots. A cold dread, different from the grief or rage, now gripped him. He pushed the door open slowly, cautiously. The hinges creaked, a loud sound in the oppressive silence. The scene inside was a tableau of horror. The living room was in disarray, furniture overturned, and on the floor, in a widening pool of dark crimson, lay two bodies, Marcus and Serafina. Both were clearly dead, their eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, their faces contorted in expressions of shock and terror. Ethan stumbled back, a gasp escaping his lips. He felt a wave of nausea, his stomach churning. He had come to confront them, to expose their deception, but he had found them like this, executed. The air in the cabin was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the acrid smell of gunpowder. He looked around frantically, his eyes darting, searching for any sign of who had done this. The room was empty, save for the two lifeless forms. He backed out of the cabin, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. He had found them, but not in the way he had imagined. The scam was real, but now a new, far more sinister layer had been added. Who had killed them, and why? Was it connected to the scam or something else entirely? He fumbled for his phone, his fingers numb, and called Inspector Davies. His voice, when he spoke, was barely a whisper. "Inspector, I found them, but they are dead." Inspector Davies and his team arrived swiftly, their presence a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of the forest. The cabin became a crime scene, swarming with forensic experts and uniformed officers. Ethan, shaken and distraught, was questioned for hours. He recounted his journey, the video, his desperate search, and the horrific discovery. Davies, observing Ethan's genuine shock and grief, quickly ruled him out as a suspect. "This is not a simple fraud anymore, Mr. Thorne," Davies stated, his voice grave. "This is a double homicide, and it suggests something far more complex than a simple insurance scam." The autopsies confirmed what Ethan had witnessed. Both Serafina and Marcus had been shot at close range. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting they knew their killer or were caught off guard. The investigation shifted gears. Davies' team delved into Serafina and Marcus's past, uncovering their history of petty cons and elaborate schemes. They found evidence of several shell companies, offshore accounts, and a complex web of financial transactions that pointed to a much larger, ongoing operation. The insurance scam, it seemed, was just one small piece of a much bigger puzzle. Ethan, despite the trauma, found himself drawn into the investigation. He felt a strange obligation, a need to understand the true extent of Serafina's deception, and to uncover the identity of their killer. He worked closely with Davies, offering insights into Serafina's personality, her habits, anything that might provide a clue. One evening, while sifting through Serafina's old belongings that the police had collected from her apartment, Ethan found a hidden compartment in a worn leather journal. Inside, tucked away, was a small, encrypted USB drive. It was different from the one Marcus had sent him. This one looked older, more used. He took it to Inspector Davies, who had it analysed by the police tech team. What they found was chilling. The drive contained not just financial records, but a series of encrypted messages, a digital diary of sorts. It revealed that Serafina and Marcus were not the masterminds of the insurance scam. They were pawns. The messages detailed their involvement with a shadowy organization, a sophisticated criminal network involved in high-stakes financial fraud, money laundering, and even industrial espionage. Serafina and Marcus, with their talent for deception and their financial acumen, had been recruited, or rather, coerced, into the network. The insurance scam was not for their personal gain. It was a test, a trial run orchestrated by the organization to assess their capabilities for a much larger operation. The video Marcus sent to Ethan was a deliberate act, designed to make Ethan believe Serafina was a heartless con artist, to ensure he would not pursue her, and to create a plausible narrative for her disappearance. She was being blackmailed. Davies explained, his voice grim. They had something on her, something from her past, and Marcus, it seems, was in too deep to escape. The messages revealed Serafina's growing fear, her desperation to escape the network. She had been planning to expose them, to go to the authorities, using the drowning as a way to get out from under their thumb. The video sent to Ethan was a last-ditch effort, a desperate attempt to create a believable cover story for her true escape. She had hoped Ethan would simply mourn her and move on, unaware of the deeper peril she was in. The plot twist hit Ethan with a profound sense of sorrow. Serafina, his beautiful bride, was not the villain he had imagined. She was a victim, trapped in a web of her own making, trying to break free. The execution was not about the insurance money, but about silencing her before she could expose the organization. Marcus, it seemed, was killed because he was a loose end, a witness to her planned defection. The investigation now focused on identifying the leaders of this criminal network. The digital diary, though encrypted, provided crucial clues, code names, meeting locations, and references to a powerful, elusive figure known only as the Architect. Ethan, now driven by a desire to avenge Serafina's true fate, became even more deeply involved. He helped Davies decipher cryptic clues, recognizing subtle patterns in Serafina's writing, understanding her coded references to places and people from her past. He felt a renewed connection to her, not as the betrayer, but as a tragic figure caught in a dangerous game. The hunt for the Architect led them down a perilous path, through the city's underbelly, into the world of corporate espionage and illicit wealth. They uncovered a vast network of shell companies, front businesses, and corrupt officials. The organization was powerful, ruthless, and seemingly untouchable. In a dramatic climax, after months of relentless pursuit, they finally cornered the architect. It was not a shadowy figure in a dark alley, but a respected, seemingly philanthropic businessman, a pillar of the community, whose public image masked a monstrous criminal enterprise. The confrontation was tense, a battle of wits and wills, but with the evidence Ethan and Davies had painstakingly gathered, the architect's reign of terror finally came to an end. The news broke like a tidal wave, exposing a scandal that rocked the nation. Serafina's name was cleared, her story rewritten from a callous con artist to a tragic figure caught in a dangerous game. Ethan found a strange sense of peace in knowing the truth, in understanding her final, desperate actions. The love he had felt for her, once shattered, began to mend, transformed by understanding and forgiveness. The aftermath of such a profound deception and a brutal crime left indelible marks. Ethan, though no longer consumed by rage, was forever changed. He had walked through the darkest corners of human deceit and emerged with a deeper, albeit painful, understanding of trust, vulnerability, and the hidden lives people lead. This story teaches us that what appears perfect on the surface can often hide deep, unsettling truths. Serafina's seemingly idyllic life with Ethan was a carefully constructed facade, masking a life of coercion and danger. It is a reminder that we often only see what people want us to see, and true understanding requires looking beyond the surface. The weight of secrets. Serafina's secrets ultimately led to her demise. The burden of her past, and her involvement with a criminal network, created a web from which she could not escape easily. This highlights the destructive power of unaddressed secrets and the importance of transparency, even when it is difficult. The nature of forgiveness. Ethan's journey from bitter betrayal to a nuanced understanding and eventual forgiveness of Serafina's actions is a powerful testament to the human capacity for empathy. It shows that forgiveness is not about condoning wrong actions, but about releasing oneself from the consuming grip of anger and resentment, allowing for healing and moving forward. The relentless pursuit of truth, despite facing overwhelming grief, betrayal, and danger. Ethan's unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth ultimately brought justice. This underscores the importance of seeking clarity and understanding, even when the path is fraught with pain and uncertainty. Trust your instincts while love can often blind us. Pay attention to those quiet whispers of doubt, the inconsistencies that do not quite add up. They might be subtle clues to a larger truth. Communicate openly. Encourage open and honest communication in your relationships. While Serafina was coerced, her inability or unwillingness to confide in Ethan earlier contributed to the tragic outcome. Creating a safe space for vulnerability can prevent many heart attacks. Be aware of your digital footprint. In this age of interconnectedness, our digital lives leave traces. Be mindful of the information you share and the connections you make online. Criminal elements often exploit digital vulnerabilities. Seek professional help for grief and trauma. Ethan's initial grief was immense, and the subsequent betrayal and trauma were even more devastating. It is crucial to seek support from friends, family, or mental health professionals when dealing with such profound emotional challenges. Report suspicious activity. If you ever encounter anything that feels like a scam, or if you suspect criminal activity, always report it to the authorities. Your vigilance can prevent others from falling victim and can help dismantle dangerous networks. Ethan, now a man forged in the fires of betrayal and justice, found a new purpose. He became an advocate for victims of fraud, using his painful experience to help others navigate the treacherous waters of deception. The ocean, once a symbol of loss, now represented the vast, unpredictable currents of life, reminding him that even in the deepest waters, truth, eventually, finds its way to the surface. If this story resonated with you, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another case. Until next time, stay safe, and always question what lies beneath the surface.